All right, welcome back to the 31st episode of the podcast that we call The Unknown. My name is Michael Volpe. I write at michaelvolpe.substack.com. I am currently in Chicago, Illinois, which is in Cook County, Illinois. And my broadcast partner is Richard Luthmann, who writes at luthmann.substack.com, which, as always, the spelling never changes, folks. Luthmann.substack.com. He's somewhere near Fort Myers, unless he's somewhere else and didn't tell me. That's in Lee County. That is named after Robert Edward Lee. Hey, is there a town or city in Lee County called Grant or maybe Ulysses? That would be ironic. They should have
Yeah,
a
probably got a
Grant.
Grant Avenue or Grant Street. They got a bunch of that stuff. Yeah.
They should have a Grant Street. All right. So we're going to start, as we have the last few weeks, on the topic of Ukraine. President Trump didn't meet, I'm sorry. He spoke by phone over an hour. From what we were told with Vladimir Putin, I don't know what his title is, but he's the dictator of Russia. And then they announced that there would be a 30-day ceasefire on attacks on energy infrastructure. And I'm sure you think this is wonderful and we're one step closer to peace. Am I right?
Of course. Now, what Trump did was he doesn't have a full ceasefire, but they have a deal in principle basically on infrastructure, on different choke points. They want to stop the killing. Both of them want to stop the killing. And Trump told Putin, you got to stop killing people. But he told him on the phone call.
I'm sure he
Stop
told them, but do you think Putin wants to stop killing people?
I think he's sick and tired of it at this point. I think that he realizes that, well, put it this way, Putin is a psychopath. Putin is an evil murderous killer. I agree with everybody there. So you have to motivate the psycho killer to his, advantage in the sense that, the cost of killing people further is far greater than the cost of not killing people. I think Trump has done that. He's effectively leveraged the geopolitical situation, the energy prices, the raw materials, the trade imbalance, all these other things. There's a lot of great stuff going on that Trump's doing, and he's brought people together. This shows political will. And Donald Trump did what Biden failed to do in 4 years. And if Biden had never gotten in, this war never would have started. There would never have been this killing. Kiev would not be in rubble. There would be all these dead people. So
can you read the title of the article for me?
Putin bombs energy plants hours after telling Trump he would halt attacks.
I don't think Trump has stopped anything, to be honest. They're supposed to meet, I think, either this week or next week. Zelensky announced that he was hoping to have a telephone call with Trump where he gets more details on the telephone call with Putin. From the reports, Putin kept Trump about an hour, was laughing about it when he was meeting with whoever he was meeting with. There is no actual ceasefire to anything. Putin was just giving him lip service.
Well, first there's a point that Trump sent General Kellogg to the Ukraine as his envoy, meaning that he's going to deal directly with Zelensky. And if General Kellogg has his way, within a week, Zelensky's going to be wearing a suit. I guarantee you. This is going to be a real change because you're going to four-star general. Kellogg is almost as good as Mattis in the sense that Kellogg has said he has a plan to kill everybody he meets. And, he probably has a plan to kill Zelensky, or at least get him into a suit. That's the easy thing for him. So,
but is the problem Zelensky or Putin? Zelensky has agreed to the ceasefire. Putin keeps firing at Ukrainian cities and towns.
They have a date. They have a date to do the ceasefire. Did the article you just said, or it stated the date? I think was Saturday or Sunday was when the ceasefire is about to start.
No, the ceasefire was supposed to start immediately, and then he went and bombed some infrastructure. He basically gave Trump the middle finger. At some point, you're going to realize that Putin is playing all of you guys for the fool, and you guys have been putting pressure on Zelensky, and that's not the guy you put pressure on. We'll see. There's some look.
Michael, if you're right, and he just double-crossed Trump, and he made Trump look like a fool, do you think that Putin's going to be dealing with this very long? You don't think that the sanctions that Trump would put in would make the sanctions that the Russians have been receiving look like child's play? You don't think he would totally, put his thumb on them if they make him to look like a fool? That's the point that you have here. You got to leverage the fact that you don't make Donald Trump look like a fool and expect to get out of it unscathed. That's what the point is.
He's made him look like a fool so far. So far, Trump keeps threatening to put sanctions on him. He hasn't done anything to Putin. He's done a lot to Zelensky. All right. Speaking of wars, the the non-war between Israel and Hamas is a non-war no longer because, and I know I've got it somewhere in here. Um, and here we go. So they have restarted the war between Hamas and Israel, and the report from the Jerusalem Post, they got better sources than me, is that they were attempting invasions, that they were planning invasions into Israel while the ceasefire was ongoing. That's the problem with these ceasefires. But Israel's killed a few of their top people already. They've gone in. I'm going to renew my belief that something akin to General William Tecumseh Sherman, total war, complete destruction. You have to put this group completely out. That's the only way to stop it. Not towards a ceasefire, not anything less. They will be back unless they're completely eliminated. Your thoughts?
I think Sherman's the right analogy. I think that they have to go to the sea. The same way Sherman drove through Atlanta and down to Savannah, I think that they have to push to the sea. The IDF has to push through the border, through Gaza, and right to the ocean. And anything that's moving, I think they should destroy. Should turn the place into a goddamn parking lot. And that's the only way that this is going to be over.
I agree. I think you have to completely obliterate that place. I don't. It's difficult militarily, but much more difficult politically. I don't know if Netanyahu and his government have the will to withstand the international pressure that's going to come immediately from any kind of significant escalation. Everyone's going to demand ceasefire, ceasefire, ceasefire.
Come on.
They,
Mike Netanyahu's already a war criminal in half these friggin' idiotic places. You know, at the end of the day, you know, he's actually trying to do things, consonant with the Geneva Convention, international law, and everything else. And Hamas is the ones that are the animals in this whole thing. Frankly, if it was up to me a long time ago, there would have been an Israeli black force, a volunteer black force that would go through. There would be no plausible deniability by the Israeli government. And they would go through and they would soften the whole place up for the IDF to roll right through. That's how I would have done it. You know, if they wanted to play games and they wanted to do things that they're accusing Netanyahu doing of war crimes and everything else, that's what I would have done. You know, but he's a better man than I am because he's actually abiding by international law, not sending in a death force, which he really is he could do because Israel, how they disgraced those people, the hostages, their bodies. What they did, there's no excuse anymore. There really isn't.
I don't know if I would do exactly that, but they need to put overwhelming force. And these ceasefires, all they do is stretch this out. It looks like on the surface, it looks like the compassionate thing to do. I think it's actually causes a lot more lives lost than just going. You have to go in and completely destroy them. We have an Elon Files segment. We talk something related to Elon Musk each and every week because he's so deep in the news. I believe the world's most famous man. Now, lately, not even lately, it's been going on for a couple of months. Tesla stock, as you can see, now up, not even down on the year, but since right here, December 17th of last year to now, way down. And if you can see this, the PE ratio is still 113.55. That's a huge PE ratio. If you like value, 20 to 30 is where you want it. So if you think it, and then that for every dollar of earnings, how many dollars is the share? So for every dollar of earnings, it's $113 of shares. That's a very expensive stock, comparatively at least. And so some say that the reason that this is happening, and let me get the stock up or the article up, is political. That he's become so aligned with the Republican Party that that's causing liberals to take a back seat, and also our electric cars, slowing vehicle sales worldwide, AI, distracted CEO, several things that they are assigning to it. Do you like the stock? Is this a good buy? You're not a stock analyst, but would you be buying right now?
I hope this thing goes to zero so I can buy a shitload of it. This is going to be the greatest. Elon is. There's a if you think about what Microsoft did to computing, Microsoft never built computers, right? But every computer you bought, it had Microsoft on it, right? And that's the thing. Elon's building electric cars. He's building the best one in the world. It's built in America, but he's not going to make his money off the electric cars. He's making his money off the charging stations. He's the only one that has invested in creating the charging stations. And now, you go to Target and they have the Tesla charging stations. Now they have the attachers on there that any electric vehicle can charge on it. So you want to get away from Elon Musk if you're one of these crazy liberals to virtue signal. That's fine. Get rid of your Tesla, sell your Tesla car. You're going to be charging at Tesla stations all around the country because that's where the electric vehicles are going to have to go. That's what it's going to come down to. He's going to make his money. Tesla's going to make its money, not so much on cars, but on the provision of power.
But you believe, so you're bullish on electric vehicles.
I'm bullish on Elon. Okay, because he's filling the. Now listen, I'm telling you, I might be getting another car very soon. I'm considering getting a Tesla or getting something that has an electric or a hybrid type car. Only because the car that I would want would be an in-town type vehicle, one that wouldn't go more than about 20 or 30 miles at a run to the supermarket and back, and you can charge it in the garage. And then the other vehicle obviously is going to be, full gas and one that can go on long road trips and everything else. But I think there's a place for electric vehicles. And I've been inside those Teslas. They're friggin' awesome. And anybody that's seen me drive, they don't want me driving. They want the Tesla driving and not me driving. I don't. You take your life into your own hands when you get in a car with me.
Right. Alternatives to oil have been around for a very long time. They've never taken off. But you're right. You've lost a lot of money betting against Elon. I would say over the next 2 to 5 years, it's a buying opportunity. But any less than that, your guess is as good as mine. But he and Tesla have recovered before from these kinds of hits. So this is not the first time that Tesla stock has taken a hit, and all previous other times it's gone up after that. So I wouldn't bet against Elon, but in the short term, who knows? All right. So
Mike, the big thing is, and the fact you said at the beginning, the political economics of it. If you're going to rob a bank, you go where the money is. Right. Well, Tesla's got a lot of market caps, so these intraday trades, these short sellers can make money on the political very quickly. So,
all right. So you have written an article about another ongoing controversy. Liberal judges picked by Obama, Biden, and others have been stymieing. You got to look that word up. The Trump agenda by constantly getting in the way. The most high profile, I don't remember the judge's name, actually ordered that planes in the air turn around and come back carrying alleged gangbangers. And here's the judge. That's this guy right here. What is his name?
Votsberg, or he's the district court of
Columbia. So Trump has suggested it's time to impeach them, and you love that idea. We should impeach any judge who issues an order we don't like. Is that right?
Well, I think that's right. I think that we have impeachment as part of the Constitution for a reason. Right. Impeachment is the first step.
Does it say?
And there's trial.
Now, in the Constitution, does it say impeach for orders we don't like, or impeach for high crimes and misdemeanors?
Oh, high crimes and misdemeanors,
is an order you don't like a high crime and misdemeanor?
I think it's a high crime and misdemeanor.
I think
it's a high crime and misdemeanor to Lincoln Riley to let these animals in this country to murder and kill. We want to make America safe again. Trump has a mandate to do that. So yes, it is a high crime and misdemeanor for this maniac, liberal Obama appointee judge to make a ruling like this and put the lives of everybody on that plane, the plane at risk. He had no idea. The military operations, the national security operation. Can this judge control troop movements? Can this judge tell the commander-in-chief what to do? Come on, Mike. You know better than I do.
We have judicial review. Judges have been doing
not of military actions. 100% wrong. You're wrong there.
All right. Well,
wrong. If you want, Mike, play the clip by Stephen Miller. Go to the top. It's a minute.
All right. It's not a crime.
Play the Stephen Miller clip. He says it as clearly as you can. Nope, he's not. The volume's not on. You got to redo that, Mike, to put it up?
Oh, hold on. All right, hold on. Let me redo it. My bad. Hold on. All right. Okay.
This is the Stephen Miller's the deputy.
Yeah, Stephen Miller he's his immigration guy.
The judge in this case put the lives of every single person on those aircraft at risk. Did he know how much fuel was in those planes? Did he know the flight conditions? Did he know the weather conditions? Did he know how many crew hours? Did he know the need for crew rest? Did he know any of that? No. This judge violated the law. He violated the Constitution.
So he
defied
think that
the system of government that we have in this country.
Because that does seem to be what you're arguing.
These same district court judges didn't do a damn thing to stop Joe Biden from flooding this nation with millions of illegal aliens. Do these district court judges didn't issue any injunctions to save the lives of Jocelyn Hungary or Laken Riley or anyone
federal
else?
Courts. Is that what you're saying?
What I'm saying is that what you said, there's a separation of powers. The judiciary exercises judgment and relief.
I don't speak for the White House. You are here to speak.
I will do.
You're here to speak for the White House.
I
just want you to answer that one simple question.
I am. Ready? Here we go. Under a proper reading of the Constitution, district court judges provide relief to individual plaintiffs seeking relief. District court judges do not have the authority, as a general matter, to enjoin the functioning of the executive branch. But their authority is at its lowest point when the president is exercising his powers as commander-in-chief. And I asked you a question, you never answered it. Can a judge enjoin troop movements overseas? Can a district court judge enjoin troop movements overseas?
Stephen,
yes or no?
I am not going to get into the
just say no, and then you'll know that I'm right.
This is a
just
separate
say no,
question,
and you'll know that
Stephen.
I'm right.
Okay, we're not talking about other troops overseas. I need to ask you about something else.
The president issued a proclamation delineating.
There is no crime committed by the judge. It's a ridiculous order. He's a crazy liberal. You want to start impeaching him, you're going to open up a can of worms. That is a slippery slope. And one day, it'll be a liberal who is president. He will do it. He or she will do it to conservative judges.
No, it's already been done to the president of the United States twice the last time. And that's all the Democrats point to is the fact that they impeached him twice. I say that Trump, to stop this, should get the Republicans to impeach John Roberts. Because that will put the black eye on John Roberts. The threat of impeachment on John Roberts will put him in line and get the federal judiciary in line. Let them self-regulate first before Trump comes in like the November man and kills everything that moves.
What would the articles of impeachment against John Roberts look like? What are the bullet points for why he should be impeached?
Criminal negligence.
Criminal negligence. Can you be more specific?
Yes.
All right.
He's a de facto member of the Bush crime family who appointed him.
All right. Yeah.
And I'll tell you some of the liberals.
There aren't enough Republicans.
Criminally, a whole bunch of other stuff. So take the ACLU's talking points against them. We'll make them into crimes too.
All right. There aren't enough Republicans in the Senate to remove him. It's a wasted exercise.
Well, they did it to Trump too. It was a wasted exercise.
I know they did. Two wrongs doesn't make a right. All right. Are you done with current events?
I guess so.
All right. What the hells? We have the What the Hell segment. We have so much going on with the What the Hell segment. So last week, I think it was last week, some explosive, I say, motions were filed. You know what? We have a subsegment. I realized it's actually called a subsegment. It's called the Dueling Lawyers. And we're going to, the cool thing about this subsection, so the way it works is I provide both arguments and you play the judge. And the cool thing about this week is this will be the actual arguments. I don't have to pretend the actual arguments are in front of you. Motions for sanctions, including judicial default. Wow. Jeremy, Sprockets. We're going to call him Sprockets. By the way, his client, Jeremy Hales, we call him J. Anon because he pretends like people are being investigated when they are not. We'll talk more about that. And so basically, as we go through it, Shockett points out that it's bad behavior to have personal attack, obstructionist behavior. It has no place in a deposition or any other proceedings, and then proceeds to provide several emails like, Randy, you scumbag, before you stupidly and insulting respond, or let your imbecile client respond using your email. That is an email from Bruce Matskin to Randall Shockett. And wait, we were on it. Oh my God, crazy. Do you think Randall Shockett will ever recover from reading Randy, you scumbag? But wait, there's more. This is, your conduct is always intended to create issues for motions to generate YouTube content. Pull them up. That is I don't remember what the term for it is, but that's a word that Bruce came up with. I will ensure your shenanigans result in the appropriate discovery orders. Horrible email. How dare he write something like that? Counsel, please produce a copy of the whatnot contract. You ignored my offers to maintain confidentiality and then insisted on a joint motion. No motion is needed, just attorneys, and confirmed that Brooks was underhanded and a scumbag. The referee found that Norkin's letter and public insult disparaged Brooks. You proposing terms of confidentiality that I can decide to agree. Oh, you know what? I think that was something Shockett wrote. It's your obligation to seek a protective order. I have no obligation to participate in a joint motion. You can simply send me terms of whatever confidential order you seek so I can decide if to agree without the necessity of you filing a motion. If you neither move for an order of protection confidentially nor respond here to provide the terms you need me to agree to for maintaining confidentiality, I will move to preclude introduction of whatnot contract. I realize your contact is always intended to create issues for motions to generate YouTube content. Polymer. And there's more. These are awful, horrible, terrible.
Oh, go back up there. Go back up there.
Mm-hmm.
It's the emoji, the penis emoji. I want to talk about that one. Go back down to page 6. Go back down where they have they call this penis emoji.
I think...
Go down to my statement, and if you go down, keep going down to page 8 after that.
Right.
And I asked that 6th question: how is your client remunerating Megan Fox, Tug, and the rest of his YouTube echo chamber? Is it money, traffic, clicks, or a combination of something else? Garden vegetables, perhaps? And I put an eggplant, which is a garden vegetable. Now, how is someone's sick mind like Randy Shockett, does that become a penis emoji? I asked, because I know plenty of people. I have been remunerated in the past with garden vegetables.
But here's the best part. He is blaming Bruce Matskin for your penis emoji.
Yes.
Bruce didn't write that.
It's not a penis emoji. It is a legitimate question about garden vegetables or remuneration.
And you pointed out that his client refers to a Jew as Deuce Foreskin.
That's right.
So, and the judge knows that.
That's right. So, well, what happened here is this, Mike. Well, what Shockett has done is put the anti-Semitism before the court. And now Zach Bolitho, the magistrate judge, has this anti-Semitism as part of the record, right?
Stop right there. We are not going to call him Magistrate Zach Bolitho. We're going to call him Magistrate Bozo, and by the end, I'm going to show you why we're going to call him Magistrate Bozo. Magistrate Bozo.
I thought that Shockett was the only clown in this story, but I guess there's more.
There's more than one clown in the story. Now, what was I going to say? Does Bruce Matskin have any responsibility here? Those are some mean emails. You're supposed to maintain professionalism at all times as a lawyer. Does he have any responsibility for what you read? Should he be sanctioned in any way?
Well, there's two things that are issues here. One is that things that other people said are being attributed to Bruce Matskin. That's number one. And
not always.
Well,
definitely, he called him a scumbag.
Well, no. I'm going to get to that. Like this quote unquote penis emoji thing that they're talking about when he asked if they got paid with eggplants is being told to Bruce. But that was something I put in. I didn't intend it to be a penis. I intended to ask the question. But that being said, the other part about it is when he's attributing things, you have to see how he's speaking, because he's an attorney. He's a mouthpiece for his client. So if he says that someone is an imbecile, that might be part of the litigation strategy to say, look, this person is repeatedly makes false and unintelligent statements. How can he believe he's an imbecile? An imbecile is actually a definitional term of someone of low intelligence. So somebody whose IQ is at a certain level is an imbecile. He might actually be looking to prove the fact that Jeremy Hales is a literal imbecile. Like factually, they can take an IQ test or show through his history that he has imbecilic level of intelligence, which is very, very possible here, that he is an imbecile. And if his clients want to prove in court that he's an imbecile, then he's his lawyer.
But he called Shockett a scumbag multiple times.
Well, I'll tell you the legal part about that. There's case law about 20 years ago where a lawyer sent another lawyer and a communication that said, I'm going to give you the legal equivalent of a proctology exam. And that case, basically going to just, leave no stone unturned. And so, that got into they looked at it with the grievance committee, everything else. And the conclusion was, that's not over the line. That's not even, outside of what's said in normal discourse, on the street between people. Yes, there's an aspirational hope that attorneys would deal with each other in a genteel manner with a white glove. But, when this guy Shockett is going and propagating his client's anti-Semitism, and Bruce is a Jewish attorney, I can understand him getting a little bit emotionally heated in dealing with the issue. I don't think anybody who is Jewish, and I'm not Jewish, but you are, and you probably could speak to it, that is trying to deal with these issues of genocide and hate and everything else, and another attorney who's Jewish himself is downplaying that. I can't see how you couldn't get emotionally agitated in that situation. I think it's very...
You're sending an email. I think that Bruce has some responsibility here. You're sending an email where you're repeatedly calling him a scumbag. However, Magistrate Bozo overreacted and played into Shockett's hands. Magistrate Bozo ordered a hearing before Bruce Matskin even had a chance to respond. And I'm going to show you something else, and this is where we're going to find out why I'm going to call him Magistrate Bozo. Now, Bruce's response is that you filed this motion before we had a chance to confer. And as you can see, he says a conference is required. He then presents evidence. He also says you are endlessly ridiculous. He then goes through each of the emails. This is an email sent as a litigant who was served in a different case. So some of the emails where Bruce used salty language were in response to a separate lawsuit that Shockett did not bother to explain to Magistrate Bozo. Other emails, you are endlessly ridiculous. The plaintiff's counsel is demanding better responses. I think if you're going to get hung up on you are endlessly ridiculous, that's kind of ridiculous. Pull him up is a term that he has put into motions. If Sprocket, and that's what we're calling him, if Sprocket gets upset about that, he should have gotten upset when it was put into a motion. So Bruce filed a motion to strike. Shockett, in response, what he said, and I don't know if I have it, but what he said is, I'm asking for a default judgment, and when the direction of the case is at stake, we don't have to have a conference. And Magistrate Bozo accepted that. So as a result, all we can presume is that Magistrate Bozo actually is considering a default judgment for salty language. What do you think of that? Is default judgment ever an appropriate response for salty language in an emails between lawyers?
I don't see the salty language. The thing that the judge could do is that, and the liberating thing is that no longer being an attorney is this, that you're held to the standard of an attorney no matter what you do if you're an attorney. They take away your free speech rights, they take away your ability to defend yourself. And so they can really say to Bruce, you're an attorney in all capacities, even if you're a litigant. And they can basically take away his right to defend himself. They can actually literally do that. And so It's a scary thought for Bruce. But that being said, if this judge does that, he's on the fast track to being not a judge much longer. He's a magistrate. He's like a minor figure, and he'll never be an Article 3 judge the way that he's going. He's actually, a case like this is an easy case to look at, to bring everybody in the courtroom, to sit down. He's bringing Bruce down to Pensacola. He should just say to all the people, let's go to one place, get everybody in a room for 2 or 3 hours and figure this out. And then if one of the sides doesn't want to do it, then they'll go to a trial, do what they got to do, or he'll make a ruling. He hasn't done that. He doesn't seem like a tough guy. He seems like a very weak guy. He seems like a very weak judge.
If you issue an order for a default judgment for salty language by the lawyer, you are punishing the clients for the behavior of the lawyer, and you are not really all that fit to be on the bench. It's completely absurd. And Magistrate Bozo, if he wasn't a bozo, should have said while sanctions may be on the table, none of the sanctions will include any substantive change to the lawsuit. So I'm striking this. You guys confer and you come back, except that he responded in an emotional way to the inflammatory motion for sanctions. So now he's basically committed to that. And by the way, he's also given Bruce Matskin less time than is the normal time afforded to respond to a motion for sanctions.
Well, that's
is that
actually
appropriate, or is he magistrate?
That's actually a good thing, because Bruce's response is pretty comprehensive already. I think the judge read it and says, well, he's not going to add much further to that to the consideration. But that being said, if they could just pull the rug out of Bruce from being a pro hoc vice attorney, which means for this time only, or for a one-shot attorney in Florida, if they could pull the rug out from under him for this, why can't they suspend Spacely Sprockets from the Florida court for suborning anti-Semitism? If you're going to play that game, if you're going to play if we're going to get you on a minor infraction and you can't represent somebody, then I think that Spacely Sprockets conduct is far worse than Bruce Matskin's.
Do you know what's far worse than salty language in an email?
What?
Perjury and subornation of perjury. In February, Bruce Matskin filed, I think it's called a 12B motion, in which he alleged that Jay Anon committed perjury by claiming falsely that his clients were on the internet constantly calling him a child molester. The evidence that Sprocket and Jay Anon produced was ridiculous. But regardless of that, there was an allegation made in February of perjury and suborning of perjury. And here is the order. This order does not even address the perjury or suborning of perjury. And he denied, and by the way, the motion to dismiss was based on the fact that after certain counts were dismissed, the $75,000 threshold no longer applied. The judge agreed. We've all agreed that $75,000 is not going to be the amount of damages, but he's going to keep it in court anyway, even though in federal court you're required to have a minimum of $75,000. In this guy's world, Magistrate Bozo, subornation of perjury, no big deal, but you better not send a mean email. That is my evidence for calling Magistrate Bozo. What do you think of that?
I think it's something that's pretty good, Michael. I think Michael.
All right. So moving along, we have a new sub-segment that we're going to call Is It Frivolous? Because Jay Anon likes to file frivolous lawsuits, so I'm going to scour the world and find a lawsuit that may or may not be frivolous, present it to you, and you tell me if you think it's a frivolous lawsuit. Let's go to the New York Post for this one. Mark Gastineau suing ESPN for $25 million over a viral Brett Favre video. So here is what happened. Back in, I don't know how long ago it was, but at one time, Mark Gastineau played for the Jets and I think some other teams. He held the single season sacks record. Michael Strahan was about to break the record. They were playing the Packers. Brett Favre goes back, he sees Strahan coming, and he basically took a dive. That's the best way to describe it. And that's how Strahan broke his record. And I think that Favre and Strahan were friends. And Gastineau clearly didn't like it because he confronted him in 2022. That confrontation was caught on video. Gastineau is not arguing that the video itself was doctored. What he is arguing is that if you had played more of the video, critical context would have been shown and he would not have been painted in such a bad light. And as a result, you should give him $25 million. What do you think on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being a very frivolous lawsuit, 1 being a meritorious lawsuit? What do you give it?
This is about a 12 on the frivolous scale. It's a little crazy. Mark Gastineau, come on, I love the guy, he was a great Jets player, but the fact of the matter is, if you have a 300-pound, 6'4" tall Michael Strahan running at you, of course you're going to hit the ground. I don't care who you are. Brett Favre did it. Yeah, it looked worse than it really was. Frankly, a lot of times, that's what they teach quarterbacks to do. Hit the ground and so give yourself up if it's going to be there because you don't want to break your leg. You don't want to get Joe Theismann. That's number one. Number two, Gastineau still has a name in New York and everywhere else. Gastineau could go to ESPN. Gastineau could go to some of the New York outlets, the WFAN in New York, get on the radio. He could do his own media and tell his side of the story as well. If he thinks the New York Post has something, he could have went to them and said, okay, well, here's my additional contact and put it out himself. Right. That's the thing.
By the way, there's a part of defamation law called public figure, which Gastineau is. He's a celebrity. Yeah. Is that is one reason why public figures have a much higher threshold because they have a bigger soapbox. Am I right?
There's no actual malice here by the New York Post, and I don't think
the New York Post. ESPN is the one.
Yeah, by ESPN. But I don't think that they were given the opportunity to provide that additional context. If all that Gastineau wanted was a microphone to say his piece, that's all ESPN has to really do. They can throw him on an ESPN. Show, whatever the hell they have, 85 channels, put him on there for 5 minutes and shoot him around the internet about how pissed off he was about the reporting, and they could probably get some views over it. Economically, that makes perfect sense for ESPN. But the fact of the matter is, the question is how much, what did he do? What steps did he take? And is his complaints, leading up to this lawsuit, providing him with the relief anyway? What's the damage to him? Is it $1 worth of damage? That's really what it comes down to. This is more publicity. And going back to the sprockets and the J-Anon stuff, it's the lawyers that have to be held accountable here. What lawyer runs to the federal court to put this into a lawsuit if they're not trying to seek publicity? If you're seeking a case under Rule 11 sanctions, if you're signing off on a case strictly for publicity purposes, knowing that there's really no chance that this case is going to get where it's going to get because you have a public figure client and there's no real damages, I think they should hold the lawyers accountable. You should sanction the client and sanction the attorneys. And don't just sanction them with money. Give them real teeth. Hurt them in their profession. Suspend them for a month. Suspend them for 90 days. That type of thing.
I agree. And this was a very frivolous lawsuit. I don't believe it's going anywhere. All right. So the next portion of our What the Hill segment, I don't know how long it's been. I think 10 days, maybe longer. But J-Anon claimed that legal authority, law enforcement, I believe Levi County, definitely he mentioned Levi County by name, were investigating you and me because I started a fundraiser and somehow that fundraiser was illegal. It was solicitation, which in the words of the Princess Bride, I do not think it means what you think it means, but he kept saying that it was a form of solicitation. So you know what I did? I went to Levi County Sheriff's and asked for all police reports from 9/1/2024 to the present. They gave me 4 back. We're going to go through them because they are very, very interesting. And then we're going to call J-Anon because his phone number comes up. And we're going to see.
Mike, it's part of the public record on an official document. He gave the police his phone number.
The police, I don't know if he gave it to them, but a phone number was there. We're not going to share the phone number, but we're going to call the phone number and see what happens. So
Whoa.
on December 16th, 2024, at approximately 14:37 hours, I responded to 151 North Otter Creek Avenue in reference to the complainant, Lynette Preston, stating that Jeremy Hales was videotaping her property. Upon arrival, I made contact with Lynette, who advised that she has a large wooden privacy fence now installed at the front of her property, closest to the road, and she has seen Jeremy Hales holding his camera above the fence to see inside her property. Lynette also stated that Jeremy's camera are not allowed to be more than 10 feet from the ground, as she pointed to the tree across the street where a video camera was mounted. Lynette informed me that she had read several statutes, she was playing lawyer, in reference to reasonable expectation of privacy and that Jeremy was violating it. I informed Lynette that I was unsure which statutes she was referring to and requested she showed me the documents she was collecting her information from. Lynette was unable to provide paperwork or statutes. Not good. I did inform Lynette of Florida statute, which defines a reasonable expectation of privacy as, quote, circumstances under which a reasonable person would believe that he or she could fully disrobe in privacy without being concerned that the person's undressing was being viewed, recorded, or broadcast by another, including but not limited to the interior of a residential dwelling, bathroom, changing room, fitting room, dressing room, or tanning booth. Lynette informed me that I was incorrect and advised that she would print out the statute and bring them to the sheriff's office. Looking at Lynette's property, only one section of her property was fenced off with newly installed privacy fence, while the other remaining sides consisted of open air spacing or age damage general purpose through the open. And so he goes on to say, because she didn't have it blocked off, there was no crime committed. And it's never a good idea to argue with the cops. And Lynette, he's not wrong. All right. I don't think he made that up. That is a lot of words to make up. And
well, you can see how crazy she's getting driven by Jay.
Right.
So
right.
It's very palpable from that.
But it's very important to understand he has a protective order against her. So if he is videotaping her, even if it's legally in that sense, you're videotaping someone you demanded to get a protective order against. So that's a bit ridiculous. Let's look at number 2. All right. On January 19th, 2025, at approximately 14:40, I responded to 351 Southwest, whatever, in reference to a violation injunction complaint. Upon arrival, contact was made with complainant Jay Anon, doesn't say Jay Anon, but I'm calling him that anyway, who was actively videotaping our interaction. He's not a weirdo. He's videotaping the police. Anyway, it's his right. Jay Anon stated that he drove past the residence of Lynette Preston. Again, he has a protective order, and he made a point to drive past the residence, to which he observed the suspect, John Cook, standing in the yard. Jeremy stated that John yelled toward him while he drove by, which was a violation of protective order out of Ohio. Jay Anon stated that he had an entire incident recorded from his cell phone and that he had downloaded it onto a USB drive. Jay Anon produced the USB drive and advised that I could depart the scene with it. Jay Anon encouraged me to speak with John and to thoroughly investigate events that unfolded. I then left the area. Upon review of the video footage, I witnessed Jay Anon exiting his property at the gates, which enter the roadway on North Otter Creek. Jay Anon drives past Lynette's residence and observes John Cook standing in the yard. On the video, John can be heard yelling, "Hide the child," repeatedly in OCC. During this time, another individual, later identified as Andrew Campbell, can be seen on a ladder, apparently working on hanging something upon the tree in the yard. After fully passing the residence, the video shows Jay Anon proceeding back towards the entrance of his property. After reviewing the video evidence, I then went to Lynette's residence to further my investigation. Once there, I made contact with John. John stated that he was not speaking to Jay Anon during the interaction, that he was yelling, "Hide the child," because Jay Anon has been attempting to film the small child on the property. He advised that he was yelling to Lynette to put the child in the residence in order to avoid having her being caught on video. When asked what OCC meant, John said it stands for Orange County Choppers because he is a fan of their work. I then spoke to Andrew, who advised that John never attempted to speak to, at, or towards Jeremy during this incident. Andrew and John said they were rehanging a large canvas in the yard in order to keep their lives as private as possible from Jay Annon's relentless videotaping of their property. Again, Jay Annan is the one with the protective order and relentlessly videotapes the property of the people he has a protective order against. I then departed the scene. Later, I had another opportunity to review the video footage from the incident. This is key. Jay Annan stated that at the opening of the video that, quote, unfortunately, it's time to drive past these psychos. However, there is an alternate route that Jay Annan could travel, which would avoid the residents completely. Jay Annan's Ohio protective order states, quote, the court finds by a preponderance of the evidence that the respondent has knowingly engaged in a pattern of conduct that causes petitioner to believe that respondent will cause physical harm or cause or has caused mental distress, and two, the following orders are equitable, fair, and necessary to protect the persons named in this order from stalking offense. Being that Jay Annan is apparently in fear of John Cook possibly causing, quote, physical harm or mental distress, it is peculiar why he would knowingly drive past the most direct route towards their residence instead of seeking an alternate direction to avoid them entirely. Additionally, in the video, Jay Annan can be seen driving his vehicle at a very slow pace past the residence. Doesn't it appear as though he is traveling at a common pace, and seems as though he is deliberately searching for a reaction from John or other residents of the property. Jay Annan stops his vehicle in the roadway to offer a brief narration during the video he's recording. And once the vehicle begins moving again, the distance traveled to the edge of Lynette's southern property is approximately 511 feet. Jay Annan drives that distance in a time frame of approximately 95 seconds. Using basic formula, I found that he averaged 5.3789 feet per second, or approximately 3.667 miles per hour. Alternatively, once Jay Annan passed the property line, he speeds up towards the next road. During this span, he covered the distance in 20 seconds, which is approximately almost 16 miles an hour. Being that Jay Annan is allegedly in fear that, quote, physical harm or mental distress may come to him as a result of his interactions with John and Lynette, I found it odd that he would intentionally slow his driving speed while driving in front of the property. During the recording, it was witnessed that Jay Annan was raising his recording device above his head roof outside his vehicle. Lynette owns an approximate 6-foot-tall privacy fence, which she uses to shield her property from the view of the public. Jay Annan was witnessed intentionally trying to see over it in order to garner a reaction from the inhabitants and to witness elements within the property that were not easily witnessed from persons of the public at the roadway. Jay Annan called back sometimes later to say he had reviewed the video footage himself after he spoke to me, and then he noticed that John had, quote, double middle fingered him as he drove by. He advised that he wanted it documented in my report, and there was a violation of the protective order due to being a form of communication with him. Upon initial review of the video, I did witness that John had reached behind his back during the incidents that was recorded. However, no discernible hand gesture could be recognized due to poor quality of the video. At first glance, I believed that John was simply adjusting his shirt while he was working. The speed and manner of movement did not indicate to me that any type of vulgar gesture was being displayed. Upon speaking with John again later, he advised that he was stretching his back from the work he was performing. He stated that he placed both hands behind the lower portion of his back and stretched backward. Upon my first interaction with John earlier, I did notice that he was visibly sweaty and noticeably tired from working in the yard. During this type of manual labor, it is common for individuals to stretch their back in the fashion described by John. Attached to the report is a zoomed image of the gesture in which Jay Annan is referring to. Based upon Jay Annan's statements, the video provided, and the testimony of the subjects, I have found no probable cause to believe a violation of the Ohio protective order has taken place. From all appearances, it seems as though Jay Annan is trying to elicit a response from the parties involved and is intentionally provoking them into possibly committing some type of violation. It goes on, and it said that it was unfounded. And I gotta get it up. There is a video that will seem to be similar to this. And while I search for the video, you wanna say anything about the what we just heard?
I think that it's pretty clear that anybody can see you do not slow down when you go by someone's house or place of business or anything connected to somebody that you're afraid of. The tendency is to speed up. The tendency is to get through there and go there as quickly as possible. I think the facts were laid out in abundant detail in the report that this is not a bona fide, good faith order that was obtained by Jeremy Hales. He does not have actual fear. And you know what? I think he may be in the realm of potential perjury, where it can be shown but from his actions and activities that if he swore to the fact that he was afraid at a certain point, maybe he's not afraid anymore, or maybe he never was, right? So there's grounds to get rid of this protective order immediately based upon that report. All that has to happen is that report has to get sent to the Ohio judge with a motion. But frankly, it's potential perjury. He may have never been afraid.
Right. Let's watch this video. That's Jan outside the property in a similar manner to what's being described.
10 feet.
10 feet, he's yelling. Yeah. And he's yelling.
John is within 4 feet of our truck right now. And he's communicating. He just said, suck his dick.
All right. Now, what you just saw is not the incident I was describing. It's similar to the incident I was describing.
That in and of itself might get the restraining order thrown out in Ohio. That video, along with the police report,
he's
not afraid of this person. He's obviously not afraid. He swore to a petition that he believed that this person could do him, threaten him, or do bodily harm, or do some type of injury to him. That's the basis for a protective order, and it's either not a good faith basis when he put it in, which is perjury and misconduct, or he's no longer afraid of them. So the basis for the order that was previously granted no longer exists. If I'm the judge, I turn around and say, irrespective of what happened before, Mr. Hales, and we'll give you a break here. We're not going to look at the perjury. We're going to say that no matter what, your subsequent conduct has showed you're not afraid of these people. There's no need for a protective order. Bye-bye.
All right. We're going to call Jan according to the number provided. Let's see what he has to say. Hold on. All right, here we go.
The ringing mic, put it on speaker.
It's on speaker.
Telephone number 330-641-630. Take your call now.
All right. All right. Hold on. All right. Hold on 1 second. All right. All right. He wasn't there. He might call us back. That's only 2 of the 4 police reports, though. So let's take a look at some of the other police reports. All right. All right. I responded to a call for service in reference to a possible violation of a civil injunction between Hales, Cook, and Preston. This sounds familiar. Hales, J. Anon, requested a phone call from a deputy, and I took the call. I called J. Anon on his phone, and he advised that he had 4 videos showing Cook violating the injunction put in place out of Ohio. At this time, I advised him that I would respond to meet with him in person so I could get a copy. J. Anon advised he had already put the video on USB for me. I responded to his location in Otter Creek. I made contact with him at the front door at the old schoolhouse. He had the videos on his phone and went through each of the videos with me on his phone. JN provided me with the USB drive, and I provided him with a business card with the current case number on it. From JN's location, I went to the home of Preston and Cook to make contact with them. They were not at home. I was unable to make contact with them. I left their residence and responded to the sheriff's office to review the 4 videos provided by JN. I reviewed the entirety of all the videos. While reviewing the videos, I made contact with Cook and Preston by office phone. While on the phone, I went through each allegation with them, and they said at each time they did not make contact and left the location. Once incident, they passed on the roadway to their home. Window was up and they never made contact with JN. One incident, Cook was at his gate and Hales and JN drove by recording. Cook grabs his phone to record Hales to protect himself and says to the phone, "See this, Your Honor." I asked Cook about this and he said he recorded the continued harassment from JN so he could turn it into the Ohio courts. Another incident, Cook pulls into Otter Creek Post Office and JN pulls in behind him. Cook said he got out and JN yelled at him to leave. Cook said he got back in his vehicle to leave the property and went to the neighboring property quickly, then left. The last incident, JN is following one of his workers on a lawnmower down the road in form of the Cook and Preston residency. JN is recording as he passes by the front of the home, and JN says he hears something said about his wife cancer. When I reviewed this recording, I could not distinguish any contact was made. After reviewing the videos and speaking with all parties involved, this case is unfounded. Another one that's unfounded. So it looks like this guy is desperately trying to get people violated for their protective order as opposed to having the protective order out of genuine fear. Am I wrong?
It looks a lot like this guy's wasting governmental resources. That's the big thing that he's doing right here. If you're going to call the cops, every time that's at the drop of a hat, it becomes a problem. It becomes a real problem. And the only way to stop it is to warn Jeremy Hales and tell him, look, you've cried wolf how many times? There are other things that are going on in this town. And if you're going to use resources in this way, at a certain point, it's going to become criminal. It's going to become, you're going to be the one that's going to be the problem. So,
all right, this is the 4th one. Now, remember, JN titles this whole affair "Bad Neighbors," calling John Cook and Michelle Preston the bad neighbors. On February 24, 2025, at 4 something, a reference to a possible theft investigation. Upon arrival, I made contact with the complainants, Tina Haley and Brian Haley. Both parties stated that they had noticed 2 large posts removed from their property just prior to notifying law enforcement to respond. They informed me that the last time they witnessed these items were on February 23rd. The posts are described as being 12 by 4 by 6 wooden posts with a memorial wreath attached to it, as well as a 6 by 6 by 6 post with a no trespassing sign attached to it. The complainants informed me that the materials were worth less than $100. Speaking to the complainants more, they stated that they believed JN was the culprit for this theft investigation. When asking them why, they advised that there had been an ongoing dispute over who owns the piece of land that the posts were located on. According to the complainants, JN owns the parcel of land that is immediately adjacent to the complainant's property, and both parties have been arguing over the placement of the wooden post for the last week or so. Upon inspection of the holes where the wooden posts were previously located, complainants stated that the survey rod in the ground marked their property line. When I asked when the last time was that a survey was completed, they advised 25 to 30 years ago. The survey rod was almost immediately touching the hole where one of the posts was removed, meaning that the 30-year-old survey would have had to been completed to near perfect accuracy to ensure proper boundary. Additionally, the Haley's property is surrounded by a fence, but it's built approximately 10 feet inward of the apparent property line. This could give the illusion that their property is smaller than it actually is. Based upon the above information, no criminal charges are pressed at this time due to the ongoing dispute over property line. It is difficult to determine a malicious intent to commit a violation as opposed to a possible misunderstanding of removing posts from what is believed to be their own property. Additionally, the time frame which last survey was completed calls the accuracy and validity of the marker into question. When I explained this information, they stated they were less concerned about pursuing charges and just wanted the incident documented. But then they go on, they didn't just want it documented. However, Tina and the other guy do say that JAnon harasses them as well. How many bad neighbors, JAnon, do you have? You said John Cook and Michelle Preston are your bad neighbors. Tina Haley is your bad neighbor too. How many bad neighbors do you have, JAnon? I would have asked him that myself, but he didn't pick up. Hopefully he'll call back. Anything you had. Now, that's it. Those are the four. There is no police report regarding an investigation into you and me.
Oh, uh-oh.
Now, did JAnon violate a law, a statute? If he goes on, I believe approximately 50,000 people watched him claim that that Levi County Sheriff's Department was investigating us. Could you and I sue him for defamation? Do you?
I'm going to say no for this reason. I think that Bruce Matskin is 100% correct, and JAnon is an imbecile. So if he's an imbecile, he cannot form the requisite intent to be able to defame us. So I'm going to use the imbecile argument, and I think that that's that what we have here. We're dealing, Michael, with imbeciles. And when you're dealing with imbeciles, and you're the one that tries to sue the imbecile, you become the imbecile. So I'm not going to get anywhere near trying to sue an imbecile.
I think what you're saying is it's not worth our time. I agree. Now, how about criminal? If he goes and tells 50,000 people falsely, and he knows that it's false, that police are investigating us, would that be a form of cyber stalking?
Well, actually, the libel law is still a criminal activity under the Florida law. Florida has a libel statute where a media outlet, and Jeremy counts as a media outlet operating in the state of Florida, if they knowingly put out false and malicious information, they can be charged with a crime. And so, you know, the attorney down there, was that Levi County, I guess, down there, could bring a charges against them under Florida libel law and Florida defamation law, which is a crime, and it's for knowingly defaming people. It's the highest threshold possible. It's like you have to go out there and you have to know what you're saying is false. You have to intentionally go out there and say it. You have to do it for the purpose of maliciously harming someone.
You watched his video. He said they are looking for timestamps. They are very interested. If he did not even reach out to authorities, and these are the police reports they gave me, then he knowingly put out false information. Is it worth our time to reach out to Levi County to ask them to investigate this?
Well, I'm down here in Lee County, Florida. I could probably go to the sheriff in Lee County, Florida with this evidence and let the Lee County sheriff look at it, because there might be charges in Lee County, Florida, because he's in Florida when he did it, admittedly, in Otter Creek when he did it. And I'm here in Lee County, Florida, named for Robert E. Lee, and I am receiving the harm here. So he might actually face charges in Lee County, Florida, if he knowingly and maliciously did these things. So you know what, Michael? I think you're right. I think I might have to spend some time today and to go see the Lee County sheriff and let them know what Mr. Hales has been up to in Otter Creek.
I would recommend using his actual name, Jeremy Brian Hales, B-R-Y-A.
Jeremy Brian Hales. Okay.
According to the police report. Anything else you wanted to add on what the Hales?
I'm going to have to put, if I bring this to the cops, I'm going to have to bring a disclaimer, because Hales is very good. He might, if they watch the videos of Hales, he might trick them into getting sent money. He might trick them into sending him money. So I have to watch out. He might be an imbecile, but he does have one skill, and that's begging for money every chance he can get. And if you beg long enough, people send you money. Sometimes you trick them. Sometimes you just want to shut you up. So there's all these different issues. But yes, that man, he's an imbecile. He is.
All right. So in our next segment, Paul got screwed. Paul is Paul Boyne. We interviewed him a couple of weeks ago. He is still awaiting charges, still awaiting trial. I'm sorry, nearly 2 years for sending mean emails like this judge gave a child to a child molester. Someone you should use their Second Amendment. This other judge is a terrible judge, grants custody to physical abusers all the time. Why doesn't someone put a 50 cal through their head? And on and on and on, those kinds of things. And Paul has updated us. He received a new lawyer. What is that guy's name again?
Todd Bussard, out of New Haven.
He's practiced law for a long time, criminal
law. He's actually
law.
very good. He's a good lawyer. He's old school. And I've tried to reach out to him, and I've talked to people that he knows. He's not going to talk to us because he's an old school lawyer that doesn't talk to the press. He's the type that likes to keep a tight circle. He's actually already tried to advise Paul not to talk to anybody about his case. And good luck with telling Paul Boyne not to mouth off.
Paul's going to talk to people. Todd does not have to talk to us. I don't care. I'll update him. He can read it. He can erase it. I don't care. That said, Paul was very upset because at the first hearing where Mr. Bussard presented himself as the new attorney, he's the head of complex litigation in the public defender's office. You don't get any better than him. Paul was upset that he was too chummy. He gave a hug apparently to the prosecutor, John Doyle. He was very upset. But then later, after all of that ended, he got excited because Bussard seemed to get Doyle to agree that a bill of particulars, which still hasn't been drafted, will be drafted, that property that was taken from a search warrant in like 2022, which still hasn't been recovered or given back to him, will be given back to him. So Bussard is making all kinds of progress. And also Paul wanted to point out that his original lawyers from the Kirschbaum Law Group charged the state of Connecticut approximately $100,000 and accomplished none of that. That's actually the biggest scandal.
Mike,
you know what I'm doing?
Mike, that actually, I think that the $100,000 by the Cherry Tree Law Firm was well spent, because a lot of it was watching us. So, they're going to bill.
They actually put line items
about Paul's case. I think that's a bona fide bill because, we're the legal authority.
They actually put line items saying they watched us. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do a FOIA request and ask for the year 2024 how much the Kirschbaum Law Group billed the state of Connecticut. And let's see how much money they made off the state of Connecticut. But we have our Paul got screwed segment.
Well, you know what you should do, Mike? If you're going to send foils into Connecticut, you should send one into the Connecticut State Police and see how much time your girlfriend, Sammy McCord, billed watching you and me on our podcast too.
You know what? I can prove she's my.
We have some great viewers in Connecticut, especially your stalker, Sammy McCord. She just, it's probable cause for crime to be committed if you're talking to Michael Volpe. So she must love the level of danger that you pose. That must be sexy.
I might be able to prove she has a crush on me based on the number of hours she has watched me. That is correct. So we have a video that we're going to watch. It's only 21 seconds. This is Cat Turd, one of my least favorite Twitter accounts.
Oh, come on. Cat Turd's the best. Cat Turd is the best. Come on.
Cat Turd got famous because Trump tweeted him out a bunch of times. Other big accounts. He got famous for no reason. But be that as it may, he thinks this is a crime. Let's listen, and you and I will decide if we think it's a crime.
Get this man out of here now. But if that doesn't happen, and we're not promoting it for 1 second, but if that doesn't happen, there will be violence. Yes. And these people had the opportunity to stop it. And they didn't.
All right, that man is President Trump. And she said if he's not removed from office and we're not advocating for it, there will be violence. Is that protected speech?
Of course it is, Mike. She's basically saying, she put a disclaimer in there before she even said anything, that she's not advocating for violence. You can't get more clear than that,
Are you saying that Cat Turd is not a legal scholar?
No, Cat Turd's probably not a legal scholar, but that's actually much closer to what landed Monica Ciardi in prison than anything. That landed Monica Ciardi in prison. If you do not do what I say, you will never see your children again. That was what the judge said to Monica, she quoted it, and the judge took it as a terroristic threat, as a threat of violence. So, you know, put it this way, it becomes so crazy that prosecutorial authorities would even charge somebody with this, but it happens. It happens, and that becomes a problem. It's become a big problem with free speech in this country.
All right. So you have an update on an investigation that our friend Frank Parlato has done a lot of work on. And in this update, you mentioned that the Daily Mail out of England has validated some of his reporting. But before we do that, you made a great video. So let's just watch the video first.
An FBI agent caught red-handed. A star witness exposed. A federal case built entirely on lies. In Brooklyn, federal court, prosecutors built a case against wellness company One Taste, but journalist Frank Parlato exposed stunning corruption. FBI agent Elliot McGinnis coached witness Aries Blanc to fabricate a fake journal. They created false evidence used to prosecute innocent people. Aries Blanc, disgruntled former One Taste member, sold her lies to Netflix, pocketing $25,000 for a bogus story designed for revenge. Now, Brooklyn Federal Court Judge Diane Gujarati faces a critical choice. Dismiss this sham case and refer McGinnis and Blank for criminal prosecution, or protect deep state corruption. America demands justice. Trump's DOJ must prosecute Agent McGinnis, indict Blank, and end weaponized lawfare once and for all. Stay tuned for updates and subscribe.
All right, so we did that a little bit Tarantino style. We jumped in the middle. So before you describe this particular article, why don't you summarize what is this One Taste case? Why you mentioned that an FBI agent needs to be prosecuted. What's going on with all of that?
Key to the case is 3 words: sex on trial. So you have a company called One Taste, and they're an educational company, but what they do at their core is orgasmic meditation. And it was based out in San Francisco, and they ended up with, drawing the ire of the Brooklyn federal prosecutors. How did this happen? Because of the woman we saw, Aries Blanc, she was basically shepherded by a rogue FBI agent named Elliot McGinnis. Elliot McGinnis is one of the most sordid creatures that you'd find. He began as an NYPD officer. He was an NYPD officer involved in a civil rights violation federal case. They beat up and threw a black man in a body bag. A bunch of cops did. And the cops said basically that McGinnis was one of the instigators. But he was never charged. Why? Because he ratted on all the other cops to the feds, right? Then he resigned from the NYPD. The case gets resolved. And about a year later, what's his reward? James Comey takes him into Quantico. So he goes to Quantico and becomes an FBI agent. He's the perfect model FBI agent under the James Comey era of the FBI. Total, a scoundrel, total rat, total scumbag. And so McGinnis basically goes to Blanc, who has an axe to grind. Aries Blanc used to be a sex worker in San Francisco. She was basically rescued by Daydone and Sherwitz, Nicole Daydone and Rachel Sherwitz.
Those are the two defendants who are charged, and they run, or one of them runs, the other one's very high up.
That's right. Rescued by One Taste from sex slavery or sex exploitation work, put it that way. And they're in One Taste is an educational company. And all that happens is she gets repaid by her repayment to them is to bring this BS story about forced labor. Now, the case itself, and Frank Parlato has spoken about it a lot, is I think the first time in American history, and leave it to the Brooklyn prosecutors to do it, the first time in American history that conspiracy, the procedural crime of conspiracy, has been charged without any underlying substantive crime. So they're charged with conspiracy to commit forced labor, right?
But no one was forced into labor.
But they're not saying that they actually did forced labor. They're not saying that they did
So
any other.
it's like if
They're not
you
saying
and
there's any
I,
underlying wire fraud. There's not any underlying bank fraud. There's not any underlying extortion. There's nothing other than a criminal agreement to commit forced labor. That's what they're
so
trying to say.
it's like if you and I planned a bank robbery and we scouted it out and wrote out the plans and the feds busted us, but they could charge, but they could say, well, you were about to. Maybe they were about to. How do you know that they didn't stop the crime as it was about to happen? Isn't the federal government a bunch of heroes? This was probably about to go off and it didn't because of the federal government.
Beyond a reasonable doubt. Okay, the conspiracy laws are an abomination of that legal standard because conspiracy requires a preponderance of the evidence. In order to prove that someone's part of the conspiracy under federal law, under RICO, under any place else, all you have to show is by a preponderance of the evidence that they're a member of, that they've made this agreement, this criminal agreement. Okay, they're not showing beyond a reasonable doubt, and that's the problem with conspiracy law because the government gets all these presumptions once they prove that someone's part of a conspiracy, particularly a RICO conspiracy. And so that's the problem with this case. Yes, Michael, what you've just described is the cops potentially doing good work, but if 9 times out of 10 they do good work and 1 time out of 10 they've actually grabbed innocent people, that becomes the problem. That becomes thought police, and that becomes something that's an abomination to our system of justice. And that's what we have here in the one case.
Rod Blagojevich never actually accepted any bribes. He was stopped in the act. How is this any different for selling then President Obama's Senate seats, what I'm referring to? How is this different? Isn't this the same?
No, because Blagojevich, they had a bunch of tapes, they had a bunch of other stuff. Here, the evidence they had, the core piece of evidence was a journal that was allegedly drafted in 2015 by Aries Blank. Well, in reality, the journal was drafted as a Google document in 2020. And it wasn't drafted by Aries Blank. It was drafted by potentially Aries Blank in coordination with Special Agent Elliot McGinnis, who was an editor on the Google document. The metadata material shows it. It shows the FBI agent shepherded it.
Is this why you believe he needs to be charged?
Yes, this is fabrication of evidence. This is coaching a witness not only to lie, but to compose, to make things up. And that's what that's what they've been doing for years in the FBI. They've been doing this with good intention.
Let's talk about this lady right here. That's her. Yep. You've been following this case. What do you think of the judge? Does she need a derogatory nickname like Magistrate Bozo? Should she be called Judge Bozo? Or
No, I don't think she should be called Judge Bozo. She was a decorated prosecutor for many years.
But you suggest that she's forgotten. But you said she's forgotten what role she is in now, and she's still a prosecutor. No,
I think she is. Some of her rulings are out of control. The fact is that they tried to say that this case had to proceed where the identities of the witnesses would not be disclosed. Right? How Kafkaesque can you get where you want to say I have to protect the identities of the witnesses in the case, that you can't even question the witnesses, that type of thing. It's a disgrace. And frankly, if she's acting and behaving this way, she got to go on an impeachment list. And I put it on there. I think she was a Trump appointee too. There's a bunch of Trump appointees that I listed. Dooley is another one. All right, Dooley in Connecticut, Comedy in the Eastern District. Look, I think that there needs to be a wholesale change in the federal judiciary. And the best way for Trump to do it is to offer up some of his own appointees. You know what? I'll horse trade some of the people I put in. Let's impeach them, and we'll impeach a whole bunch of others too. People that forget their role in the constitutional order and behave in this manner over a period of cases, not just one case, and over a period of cases show a pattern that they're behaving poorly, that they're just terrible. They got to go.
Poor behavior is not a technical reason.
Yes, it is.
Impeachment is a political process, so you can come up with any reason you want as long as you have the votes. I agree with that. Not if you're reading the text of the Constitution, however. I wanted to talk to you about this one specific sentence that you wrote. Defeated investigative journalist Frank Parlato exposed government misconduct in a report confirmed by the Daily Mail, so we don't have to go to the 2 separate links. What if Frank Parlato expose, and what was confirmed by the Daily Mail?
He exposed the McGinnis's manipulation of the journal itself. What they did was there was some stuff written in 2015, some paper stuff written in 2015 that Aries Blank wrote that had a linguistic syntax to it. Mm-hmm. And in no way, shape, or form did that coincide with the language in the 2020 digital document. She did not write.
And here is the Daily Mail report. So now it's not merely you and it's not merely Frank Parlato reporting on serious malfeasance by federal authorities, including an FBI agent, but it is the Daily Mail itself as well, I should say, and others. Am I right?
That's right. And the sick part about this case was the reason why it got put into prosecution was because of a very terrible journalist named Ellen Hewitt with Bloomberg. And she took this story. She ran with it, didn't have all the facts. I think she was trying to do a hit job. And the fact is that it got parlayed into this Netflix documentary, and Aries Blank got paid $25,000. Ellen Hewitt got paid money. Bloomberg got paid money. They made this big story about One Taste, and then it ended up in the Eastern District of New York. The guy shepherding the whole thing was McGinnis. So he's not acting like a police officer, law enforcement, FBI agent. He's acting more like a Hollywood producer. He's acting more like somebody that's on the January 6th committee than somebody that went to Quantico. And that's the problem here. That's why this guy has to be walked out of the New York field office of the FBI in bracelets. That entire office has to go. It is the viper's nest. It is the stain on United States justice right now. They're the ones who are withholding the Epstein files. They're the ones that, after Pam Bondi said, turn over the files, they've been destroying files. They've been hiding files. Everybody there needs to go.
I'm not going to argue about Epstein, but that's just somebody's excuse because there are no more Epstein files. They've all been released. That said, I have a question for you. Netflix, what criminal, civil, and or ethical liability do they have? Do they have any criminal liability?
I don't think they have criminal liability at all. They're
civil liability.
I don't think they have civil liability either.
Ethical liability.
Yeah. Journalistic ethics, they have some journalistic ethics because I don't think they did the fact check necessary, but they kind of relied on Bloomberg and Ellen Hewitt. So if they were to get sued, I think they could turn around and point
this is not one newspaper largely reporting on another newspaper. Netflix did its own documentary.
Yeah.
They are ethically bound to not rely on Bloomberg and say, well, they did the legwork. We're just going to take their word for it. So they definitely have ethical liability. But look, if they relied on a doctor journal to falsely impugn these two women. Am I right?
Yeah.
That there's no civil, that's not a defamation claim?
Well, no, because if you think about it and take it back to its basis, they're actually a victim like everybody else. They don't, and Cherowitz are victims, the defendants, but Netflix is a victim, and the mass public is a victim because of the intentional activity of Aries Blank and this agent. There's something in law called an intervening superseding cause, right? Mm-hmm. So if somebody is just negligent, if somebody just makes a mistake, that's not treated as harshly as somebody who intentionally does something. If you intentionally burn a house down, that's arson. That's far worse than it's a mistake and the house burns down. Well, they intentionally burned this house down. That's what they did here. That's what this rogue special agent McGinnis, in coordination with this woman hell bent on vengeance, did to the One Taste defendants. This case has to go. They should dismiss it immediately and do the right thing and refer these people for prosecution.
If they do the right thing, it'll be the first time. We have talked about this case. I interviewed Michelle McDonald. Michelle has been was practicing law from the mid-'80s to 2021 when her license was indefinitely suspended. Why was her license indefinitely suspended? Well, let me tell you why her license
Welcome back, WC.
All right, I'm going to get it up. We're going to listen for about 2 minutes.
And uphold it. And quite frankly, our civil rights are being violated by courts all over the state.
One of the cases you've been involved in was with Sandra Grazzini-Rucki.
Is that one of the cases that you're referring to of civil rights being violated?
Yes, that's one of the cases. That was just one of those cases that went viral because what happened in that case is that I handled a trial while under arrest with no mother, no pen, no paper, no materials.
Okay.
And the children had run away. So that was a civil rights violation even before that happened. I had, on behalf of Sandra, sued the presiding judge. His name was David Knutson. I sued him in federal court. That suit was pending when she was having her custody trial, and that event occurred.
Ultimately, though, it was proven that Sandra Grazzini-Rucki was found guilty of denying the father's rights. So were his rights violated by her, or were her rights violated by the court?
Both of their rights were violated the court. What the public needs to be aware of is that the reason I got involved, and I did the case pro bono, is that Sandra came to me, and both she and her and the father, not her husband at the time, had no contact with their children whatsoever. The judge did that in September of 2012 without any hearing, without any process, and in 2 hours ordered her, she was already divorced, to leave her home, leave her children there, whom she had custody of, 5 of them, and ordered her to not return, or else she'd...
Did you hear anything that would warrant her license being indefinitely suspended?
Not at all.
No, it was that no process. Now, almost all of what you heard was factual statements. For instance, she said, I conducted a trial handcuffed to a wheelchair. You heard that, right? This is the trial. If you don't believe me, watch this. That's Michelle being wheeled in a wheelchair, and she's handcuffed. Now, I'm going to go forward. Still in the same wheelchair, right?
Yeah.
Do you see paper, pen in front of her? No. Do you see a client next to her?
Nope.
No. That's the other lawyer, Lisa Elliott. Do you see this guy right here? That's her client. Her client is next to her. Her client isn't next to her. So all of those are factual statements regarding removing both parents from the children's life. This is September 7th order. Petitioner shall vacate the home. You heard she was removed from her home. The children's aunt, Tammy Love, or another individual as recommended by the guardian ad litem, shall have temporary physical and legal custody of the minor children. Tammy Love shall move into the Iron Place. That's where they lived in residence, and will reside with the children at their home until further order of the court. The children's aunt, Nancy Olson, may contact the children to assist Ms. Love or other individual as recommended by the guardian ad litem. Neither party shall have any contact with the minor children. All of those things are factual, and yet the bar had a problem with her saying no process, no due process. And because in Minnesota, they have interpreted the Constitution says you have to be learned in the law. No one can say she's not learned in the law, but they have interpreted it to say that learned in the law is an active and in good standing law license. They won't let her run for Supreme Court judge. And so I believe she had much stronger case on the state level. She's trying it on the federal level. But I did want to read this part because this is interesting. She says that what they're doing is what's called a litmus test, and the U.S. Supreme Court has said you can't do a litmus test. So the Minnesota Supreme Court applied a litmus paper test rather than the constitutional analysis for ballot access. The Minnesota Supreme Court rendered its decision in McDonald's case without addressing her constitutional challenge to the election law, thereby disregarding the guiding principles summarized by Anderson versus Celebrezze, a federal case. In Anderson, this court rejected the idea of a litmus test that would separate valid from invalid restrictions and describe the following analytical process. A court must first consider the character and magnitude of the asserted injury to the rights protected by the First and 14th Amendment that the plaintiff seeks to vindicate. It then must identify and evaluate the precise interests put forward by the state as justifications for burden imposed by its rule. In passing judgment, the court must only determine the legitimacy and strengths of each of those interests. It must also consider to the extent which those interests make it necessary to burden the plaintiff's rights. Only after weighing these factors is the reviewing court in a position to decide whether the challenge provision is unconstitutional. She's basically arguing that the Minnesota Constitution says, learn it in the law. You have added an extra step, meaning a in good standing license. And by the way, here's an interesting little fact. To be the Attorney General in Minnesota, you must be qualified for a permanent resident in the state of Minnesota for at least 30 days and at least 21 years of age. You don't even have to be a lawyer to be Attorney General. But to be a judge, you not only have to be a lawyer, but have a law license. Anything you wanted to add?
Well, that's Minnesota. That's a blue state. That's another place Trump could look at for blue state lawfare, blue state weaponization, because that looks like clear weaponization to me. And, you know, DOJ is going to get to it. There's so much crap that they got to weed out already. So I think towards the end of the year, we're going to start seeing some of the stuff come full circle.
All right. You have another article about one of your favorite people, Camilla Hanks. Before you mention it, for full disclosure, when you were a lawyer, you did some legal work for her. You then went to jail and she decided not to pay you. At least that is the allegation you make. You are suing her. Some may say that you just simply don't like her. If you believe that, just keep that in mind. But you are saying that she is employing an accused drug lord. What is going on here?
Okay, so I'm going to explain this. Number one, it's not my story entirely. I gave some comments. Really, Rick LaRiviere and modern Thomas Ness and Frankie Pressman and a lot of people that talk to law enforcement, a lot of people on the ground in New York. But look at that guy right there. That's Ettore Mazzei. Okay, he's a drug lord. Drug lord Ettore Mazzei was that's his perp walk out of the 120 precinct. Okay, if you go down a little bit, we're going to talk a little bit about a charity, and the charity. If you go and look at that first piece, the first graphic up there. Go up there, Mike. $2,124,000. That's $2 million. They made a good amount of money in that charity that they got in grants and gifts. And if you keep down on that page, Camilla Hanks is number one, the president and CEO. This is before she became the councilwoman. And look at down to
number six.
Number six.
Mazzei.
He was the director of this company, and so he knew him for years. He was a director. So we have a question now. What was going on with this not-for-profit? There's a direct link to these people sharing the same board, everything else. And the second keep going down. The second she got arrested, here's his perp walk, and she distances herself from him. She doesn't say that I was Ettore Mazzei on the same board as him. I wish him well. I hope everything's okay. He's a friend. He says, "Oh, I just hope better days are ahead." You know, fuck this guy. You know, they kind of did the same thing to me. You know, they're not nice people. Camilla Hanks and Kevin Barry Love. They're actually the scum of the earth. But if you look over here, if you look at that right there, that's Ettore Mazzei and his son David giving money to Camilla Hanks. Now, the district attorney in Staten Island, his name is Michael E. McMahon, believes that Ettore Mazzei is a drug lord. He charged him, and she has not returned the money. He gave the money to her, and with New York City's matching funds that are 8-1, that's thousands of dollars of New York City money that's being drug money that's being used to fund this. So we don't know how much of that non-for-profit that she was in, the Tappan Park, and then how much of, and keep that graphic up. but how much of the Tappan Park money was maybe laundered money, part of the cash laundering scheme for Ettore Mazzei, this high-profile criminal. But the fact of the matter is there are at least two politicians on Staten Island that are backing Camilla Hanks, knowing full well that this relationship with Ettore Mazzei, and both of them are pro-cop.
All right,
one of them is the district attorney, Mike McMahon. The other one is the state senator, okay? And so the fact is, I got a lot of cops on Staten Island that are outraged. How can this woman, who already is anti-cop, she went along and she had this How Many Stops Act, which the police unions hate, right? So she turns around now, the sitting DA is backing her, sending his people, and Spanton, Jessica Scarcella-Spanton is sending her people to collect petition signatures for ballot access to get Camilla Hanks on the ballot. And it's crazy. The cops feel betrayed. They're betrayed.
All right, but let me play devil's advocate. This guy seemed to be a pillar of the community and then was arrested as a drug lord. And she was on the board of a charity with him. That seems a little loose. What, she's supposed to know that the pillar of the community is really a drug lord and stay off of a charity board because he is?
He was Kevin Barry Love, her husband's a pot dealer. So he supplied the drugs to them. So Kevin took the drugs. I was there when Kevin took the drugs. Kevin took some of my drugs back in the day. So that's how it is. You know, I wish I would have done what Johnny Depp did to Marilyn Manson. I wish I would have gave Kevin some drugs to shut up. You know, that would have been great. That would have been the greatest coup de grace that I ever had. But no. But McMahon is dirty, and he's not even as dirty as these people are. These people are the dirtiest people I ever seen. I used to think McMahon was the dirtiest people I ever saw, and these people have put McMahon to shame. You know, they're out McMahonning McMahon. It's insane. So this is what we have. This guy, this world, she supports cop killers, and that's her husband, the $1 million. He's a millionaire, multi-millionaire real estate developer in New York City. And
now you said that this guy, Mazzei is his name, was supplying him with marijuana. Do you know that? Do you think that? Are you speculating?
Oh, I know that. I know that for a fact. Back in the day, he was doing it. Yeah, without a doubt. That's my belief. That's a reasonable belief.
How do you know that?
Because I was doing drugs with the guy back in the day. Back in 2017, I smoked a few bones. I did a little schnaze. You know how it was back in the day. Right. In the old days, in the bad old days. That's how I used to do things.
I would criticize you, but I'm not in a position. All right. Okay. All right. And I think
I asked all these questions. Here's all the questions I asked to McMahon, and really, there's another issue there about election integrity because the person that they have there is the Board of Elections commissioner was also on the board with Ettore Mazzei. So Hanks appoints Michelle Soleo, Board of Elections commissioner.
If you don't know, the guy Mazzei was a pillar of the community, as I understood it, and then everyone was shocked. So if you, you're supposed to
gambling going on in this establishment? Shocked. How do we know? Have they looked into? Here's the point: has McMahon?
Oh, you're supposed to look into everyone who's on the board of the charity you're on.
No. Now that there's a criminal investigation, right? Go in there and see if they didn't use that as a cash wash. Because shit, if I was a drug lord, I'd be washing my cash through everything. And if I had my access to a non-for-profit with $2 million in money going back and forth, that's a great way to wash dirty cash. So they have to go and look at that. They haven't been cleared to my mind. So the questions have to be said. McMahon, did you go knock on the door? Did you check all their books? Did you check the cash there? Have they cooperated? What's going on? She's a city councilwoman. What the hell's going on here?
All right. The person you're looking at is Wayne Dolcefino. You're going to see a 12-year-old on the screen. His name is Grant Reichert. This video was done in 2022. They're going to be talking about a woman named Helen Laird, who was doing the custody evaluation on Grant's parents' custody, and then we're going to talk about the video.
I want to keep you much longer because I know you want to spend time, and I want to ask your grandma one quick question. But Helen has said you want to go back and forth. I just want to make sure that I understand you correctly. That is not what you've told her you want.
I said, no, I don't like going back and forth. And then she said, oh, well, if that is, she said, it was, I don't want to go back and forth. Okay, well, it's either that or you're full-time with your mom. I said, in that case, yes, as long as I can be with my dad, and if that's my only option. But I realized that was basically, she set me up to say that. Like, I don't know how else, if she, and this was after like an hour-long call, she basically said, say this, right? She gave me two options, and she made the other one wildly crazy, so I had to say one thing, and then I said it, and that's how that happened.
All right. That
It's a smart kid. Smart kid, huh?
Huh?
Very at a young age how they screw you.
Right. Yeah, no, he figured it out. That was done during the trial. There was like a break, but basically the trial was ongoing. And what he's describing is the custody evaluator, in effect, manipulating him, a 12-year-old, to say that I want 50-50. Because what he actually said in another part of the video, and I'm going to do an article on this, and we're going to have the whole video, is he wanted to live full-time with his dad because his mom is a drunk and unstable and abusive. But they didn't want to listen to him, and right now he lives full-time with his mom. Laird manipulated him, manipulated the evaluation. Is one more microcosm of my belief that these custody evaluators, guardian ad litem, you may eliminate them, make them illegal. They do not help. Any thoughts you wanted to have?
No, that's the ability for them to manipulate these family court cases is phenomenal. And it's not about the best interest of the child or the family. It's about their best interests and fees, and it's about keeping the feeding trough open, and that's the problem. And that becomes the real problem. And there have to be real consequences for people that are evaluators or court appointed that do this stuff. You know, you don't have the hook anymore, Michael.
Do you think she needs real consequences for what you just heard? If it's confirmed that she did this to a 12-year-old, should there be consequences to Helen Laird?
Michael, they don't have a hook anymore, but I'm all for the hook. I want to bring back the hook. I really want to put people up on the hook. I want to let everybody see. That's the only way that there's deterrence. Deterrence is such a powerful tool in today's society, and we don't have deterrence anymore because we have a consequence-free society in a lot of instances. I think we need a hook.
I think she needs to be eliminated as a custody evaluator. Let's start with that.
I don't think she needs to be eliminated. I think we got to put her in the middle of the public square, like they used to do in the chains and everything else. So they put your head
that might be cruel and unusual punishment, but
it would be great because she's just as cruel and unusual to the kids. I think that turnabout's fair play. Not cruel at all.
I'm done. Anything you wanted to add? Any other investigation you're working on? Anything you wanted to add?
Got a couple things coming out. I will say here that a source has told me that Dinesh Nashirvan, our buddy, is actually the county prosecutors in Denton, Texas, have the case, and he's going to be charged with a felony. And they're bringing it to the grand jury. So they made the charging decision. From what I hear, I'm just putting the rest of the stuff together. I think Frank is talking to them as well. So there's going to be something coming out on that very shortly with respect to the Denton County.
Hold on. Is somebody leaking decisions to you illegally? It sounds like you should not be in possession of such information that until he is charged, the prosecutor's office is not supposed to be telling you. Someone leaking to you illegally.
No, that's not illegal because there's a First Amendment in this country. And there are there's 600 victims.
I'm not saying you did anything illegally. Is someone leaking
to
you illegally?
Michael, there are almost 650 victims of Dinesh. I will tell you that the officers in the case
that allows the prosecutors to tell you ahead of time that he's about to be
No, they didn't tell. I have not spoken to the prosecutor directly, and that's the point here. I'm telling you that the information that I've gotten, and there are
it's like fourth source. So you're engaging.
I'm trying to source it through several people, and I'm trying to get direct confirmation before I say it. But what I'm telling you is that it's direct from the prosecutors. And there are so many victims of this man, and there are so many people that are out there that this could come from just about anybody that they spoke to as to a status update. Put it that way.
All right, I got you. So it might have been one of the witnesses. Anything else you wanted to add?
that's all we have for now. There's a lot of stuff coming out, so pay attention to the family court stuff, the Kristen Badal that we wanted to talk about a little bit, which was the First Amendment issue. That story is going.
You know what? We've got time. I almost forgot. Let's get that story up, and then let's make that the last thing that we talk about. So let me find
our Brad Badal, the guy with the gun.
All right, yes. Okay. All right. So let's get this up. You were included in a New Jersey filing. Really excited for you. But it was a red letter day for Richard Luthmann. So what? Hold on. Let me read it and then you explain the article. New Jersey legal mafia exposed! Exclamation point. Ex-politician tries to muzzle free speech. Ex-wife fights back. What's going on here?
Oh, there's our guy. Look at him. Oh, he looks like he's just central casting out of New Jersey thug world. You know, Tony Soprano could be standing right
Bradley Badal.
Bradley Badal. And so Brad Badal he's part of, he's in that picture below. He's part of the New Jersey mafia, but they're the legal mafia. That's the sheriff and the county surrogate and the state senator and elected officials. He was a elected official in Morris County in the town of Mendham. He's on the town council of Mendham. And go back up to that article, actually. Right there. This is where he is. He's in front of Judge Oliveira, but also the letter's addressed to one of the judges we know very well, Judge Bogard. Judge Peter Bogard. He's the Monica Ciardi judge. He's the guy who threw Monica Ciardi in jail. And so that's the lawyer that filed these papers, the Jessica Sprague. I think she's visiting a beach well. I'm not sure.
What are the papers? What is this lawyer trying to do?
She's trying to get articles that I've written and articles on Family Court Circuit.
Just you or others?
Articles I've written on Family Court Circuit, Substack, and other places, as well as stuff that's been published by Jill Jones Soderman and the Foundation for the Child Victims of the Family Courts, removed from the internet. They're trying to order
not only, also interviews conducted by Marianne Petrie, who does a podcast called Slam the Gavel. Am I right? Yeah. She wants all of there.
They wanted to do a prior, and they still want to do a prior restraint on speech. They want to say, we can't say these things. They haven't had a trial. They haven't said that these things are false, defamatory, and malicious. They just said, you're a judge. Judge, tell these people to stop saying that. That's basically what you said.
What has happened? There was a court hearing about this. Did the judge order you to remove anything?
There was no court hearing about this. That what happened was the court issued an order on Monday that said that to the extent that Jessica Sprague, the attorney, said that it was an emergency application, that the court didn't consider it to be an emergency application under the New Jersey preliminary restraint standard, which is Crow v. DeGioia. And so that's the standard for an emergency preliminary restraint. But the court said, look, we're going to be in court on March 31st on like 10 other things. There are 10 other motions we're trying to resolve on that day. So we'll argue it on that day. So, did the judge do anything wrong yet? Not yet. She hasn't done anything wrong yet because, everybody has an opportunity to be heard. And frankly, I would hope that Jessica Sprague and all these idiots over at her law firm withdraw this motion. Now, I haven't been served any papers. There's no jurisdiction over me in New Jersey. They have nothing they can do to me. Even if the judge says, Luthmann, take that down, I have no obligation to listen to some judge in New Jersey about anything, okay? But especially when they're pissing on the First Amendment. But that being said, the second that they start to try to do something like this, it gets into the category that's called anti-SLAPP, right? The strategic litigation against public participation. And you cannot litigate in a way to block public participation. And a big part of that is journalism. You cannot get journalists and journalism outlets and preliminarily restrain speech or reports except for in the most egregious of circumstances. And
let me challenge you on that.
Emergency or something like that.
Let me challenge you on that. This is a story from 2020. This is Mecklenburg County, which includes Charlotte in North Carolina. Her name is Aretha Blake, and she attempted to stop a report from a news station called WBTV by a reporter named Nick Oshner. And I know Nick, and he is a great reporter. And she attempted to stop it before it was released, saying that it amounted to an election interference because it is inaccurate and defamatory. In an extraordinary move, they asked Superior Court Judge Daniel Cunert to issue a temporary restraining order blocking publication. The planned story focuses on Blake's 2 years in family court. They were able to block the story for about a week. Nick and his news station then did a story about how their story is blocked. This judge that they asked, or maybe another one, then said, "You're wrong, totally ridiculous," and the original story eventually aired. But if you think that what's happening to you is completely unique, it is not.
Oh, and it's happened before. Judge Galina Mecca in Bergen County, New Jersey, issued one about in 2013 or 2014, maybe a little over 10 years ago, doing the same thing, telling an outlet, an independent outlet, to pull down a story, to take the story down. Now, there's two differences now, I think. I think we're starting to get much more independent media and a lot more nationalized independent media, in the sense that you're sitting in Chicago, I'm sitting in Florida, but we're talking about stories from all around the country and all around the world. I don't think the courts have the ability to corral things the same way in the old newspaper days, or even the three or five channel.
To your point, in Nick's case, he was a reporter out of Mecklenburg County, so they could go to a Mecklenburg County court and immediately go to work. That to your point. However, I will point out that not only did her legal trickery backfire, but it backfired spectacularly, because it just created an extra story for Nick. And then he ran the original story just a week late. So she didn't really do anything. But you're right. It's more difficult to stop me from reporting on this, to stop you from reporting on this. They would have to go to a federal judge who's not going to be very sympathetic to these kinds of moves.
Our restraints on speech are just anathema to ordered liberty.
Look, the only scenario where I see that as possibly being allowed is on troop movement during war, or the release of an undercover agent.
National security, really, right. High level.
The release of an undercover agent.
Yeah,
that kind of thing, but not
where it's a life and death situation. It needs to be life and death. Like attorneys aren't even allowed to talk about confidentialities. The only exception is life or death. That's where we have to be. Not a judge. And by the way, that Judge Blake claimed before the story came out that it was defamatory. How could she know that Nick Oshner was going to produce a defamatory story if she had not seen it? How could she? You haven't been to the judge's chamber. She's got a crystal ball. Most of them do.
All right. That is all I have. Do you have anything else?
That's it, Mike.
All right. Have a good week, guys. We'll be back.